All right, so last night at around 8 o'clock, the report from the independent panel probing the Parliamentary farm robbery went online. And the bottom line is the judges believe the president may have a prima facie case to answer regarding that robbery. They've raised questions around a number of points in the president's version of events. And calls have been mounting since then for the president to step down. Now, we know that the president's spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, told 702 this afternoon that a presidential address is imminent. But we also know the ANC's NEC is now going to meet tomorrow afternoon in person. So what's going to happen next? What are the options? Let's speak to political analyst and host of On the Spot here on eNCA, Lukhona Mnguni. Lukhona, thank you so much for joining us. You've read the report. In your view, we know it's a preliminary report. We know that they didn't do any interviews. They didn't summon anyone. They purely looked at the version of events that were given to them by the president, the UDM, the ATM, and by the EFF. They found big holes. How serious is this report in your view?
Well, a good evening to you, Sally, and to our viewers at eNCA. This is an important report in the sense that the exercise of the panel was always going to be a sniffing exercise to check whether or not there is a case to be made for an ad hoc committee to be appointed to investigate this issue. And so what this report does is it paves the way for a parliamentary process where the president would really be put, to use the title of that show, on the spot by Parliament to make sure that, you know, there is now calling of witnesses, interrogation of people. And I think what is very serious for the president, he has to make a personal choice whether or not he wants his private affairs to be the subject of what may turn out to be a public spectacle if, for example, you look at the public protector process that is underway in Parliament.
So we spoke to our senior reporter, Sipho Mandla-Goge, just a little earlier. He says he's hearing that the president wants to go. You tell me, what are you hearing?
Well, it started yesterday that the president, you know, has made up his mind that he wants to go. There are people who are trying to convince him that maybe this report can be reviewed, maybe this report is not strong enough, there are gaping holes on the report itself and so on. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, President Ramaphosa has to solve for himself. And if anything has been in the last, 4 years that he has been president, since 2018, he has shied away from public scrutiny. He has shied away from being held to account. He is quite uncomfortable when he is the source of attention. And I think an inquiry of Parliament would actually do that for him. And of course, Sally, we also don't know the extent of the problem. And so an inquiry may, unearth new information that could be discomforting for the president for it to be in the public domain, because he had thought, he has dealt with this issue quietly, discreetly. I mean, those are some of the words being used in the report to say, there was an attempt to, talk to the Namibian police, but make sure that they deal with these issues as discreetly as possible. And if the president, of course, is true to his words previously in other interactions where he has said, if there's anything that looks like a conflict of interest, he would say he's conflicted and he would go. Unfortunately, there is no doubt, no matter how bad you think the, former Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo report is, there is absolutely no doubt that there is some material conflict of interest. The president has opened himself up to the kind of, accusation that will eventually taint the office that he holds. And if he's true to his word, I think the best thing to do is to resign. Of course, some people, Sally, will advise him against resigning because it will put the ANC in a very precarious position politically. I mean, this is a party that is, how many days now? 15 days away from the opening of conference on the 16th of December, and we would have thought that the president would open and close conference, and suddenly we have absolutely no idea if he resigns, who opens that conference. That would be easy to solve, but who puts up their hand and say they want to go for president? Because definitely Dr. Zweli Mkhize would not go unchallenged.
Certainly he can play this out if he does decide to wait for the parliamentary process to continue. He can keep this going for a long time. You've explained how he might well not want to do that. If he goes, you've explained how the ANC will be in quite a difficult position. But it's also surely going to put our country in a very difficult position. Of course, the early days of Ramaphosa have gone. There has been a fair amount of criticism of the president, but certainly globally he's seen as a stable president. He's seen as a man who can get us through the challenges of state capture. What will it do to the country if he steps down, do you think?
Well, look, Sally, even for the ANC, he's quite a steady hand. I was talking to a friend earlier and said, he's their trump card. The ANC knows that President Ramaphosa polls better than the ANC does. What does it mean in the short term for stability in the country? Well, you've got a deputy president in Deputy President David Mabuza. Whether or not he would be willing to step up to the challenge of becoming president, and whether that would not shock the political system of South Africa, the perception about South Africa, because he himself, Deputy President Mabuza, has his own rumors of scandal that keep following him, and some have never been tested, some have never been put to rest. And therefore, what it means in the short term is that certainly there'll be a lot of moving pieces. One, because you would have to have some level of an interim arrangement, but probably the ANC would wait it out. I mean, the law would allow it. I think it's about 30 days until you've got to elect a president. So you're 14 days from Nasrec. Wait and see who gets elected as president of the ANC, and maybe that person comes then to the fore and gets sworn in as state president. And of course, you'd have cabinet reshuffles that are also, around the power dynamics and the reconfigurations of power arrangements from the Nasrec conference that is upcoming. So for the country, it's really a place of limbo, because you've got to wait and see. And unfortunately, the ANC's own political process has to play itself out. But the ANC will be trying to solve, does the person who become president today, if President Ramaphosa goes, does that person become someone who will give confidence to the voters, or that becomes somebody who ensures that the ANC will definitely lose elections in 2024? Because remember, Sally, even with Cyril Ramaphosa as president of the ANC has begun polling below 50%.
That's
so
true.
The situation becomes even far worse with a different person in charge.
My word, there is just a lot at stake on many different levels. Lukhona Mnguni, thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. Of course, Lukhona is not only a political analyst, he's also host of On the Spot, which airs at noon every Sunday here on eNCA. Now,